90% of our everyday behavior is based on our habits. Now that means how we treat people, how we spend our money, what we watch, what we listen to. 90% of the time we're on autopilot. We do what we've done before. Wow, 90%. 90% of the times that we're doing the same thing we've done. And God, how the heck can we ever think that we're going to have any chance of changing, right? If there's 90% that's just a repeat. Well, why do we have habits like this? Well, the brain likes habits because it allows it to rest. It's a time saver. Because when you're engaging in a habit, the mind can go on pause. It can go think about something else. It can disengage from your doing. So it thinks that, oh, I'm really being efficient here. It uses it as a tool. And of course, habits are comfortable, right? So um, so but we ought to be able to say, since it's a mind thing, we ought to be able to say with the mind, okay, I don't want to just engage in habits 90% of the time. I want to live a life that's more mindful, that's more meaningful. So I'll think something different. I'll think about what I'm doing. I'll think something that'll cause me to change. Well, it's not only habits that are in a rut. Our thinking is in a rut too. A 2005 study showed that of all the thousands of thoughts we have per day, anywhere between 12,000 and 60,000, of all of those thoughts, 80% of them are negative, and 95% of them we've thought the day before. 95% of the thoughts we've thought the day before. Whew. So it's not only the habits that are in a rut, our thoughts are in a rut. And so for us to think of something new, for us to think of a different way to live our life, it almost seems insurmountable, doesn't it? Well, why is this a problem? I mean, we maybe you say, well, okay, it makes life easier doing it that way. But we are really not meant to live on autopilot. We're not meant to have our lives be doing the same thing, staying at the same level. The universe is expanding. And of course, we're made of the universe. We're also meant to expand. If you think you know everything about a thing one day, the next day, that's not all there is to know about it because there's been expansion. So the same thing happens with us. And we think we have a handle on things, but then the next day there's more to actually grasp. There's more to grasp, and we're meant to be expanding, increasing our awareness of mostly of the divinity that we are, becoming more aware of who and what we are. In addition to expanding our experiences, expanding those things, our consciousness. See, when we're living on autopilot, and we're not being deliberate about our choices, and we want to be deliberate about our choices because not doing so means that we're shortchanging the universe. We're shortchanging our life. We're not taking advantage of our nature, which is to expand. So we want to live deliberately. We want to actually choose what we're doing rather than just fall into habit. We want to choose a different thought rather than just fall into the habitual thoughts. And this is especially true when it comes to what we think is possible. Now, possible is defined as capable of happening, existing, or being true, without contradicting proven facts, laws, or circumstances. Okay, something's capable of happening, being true, without contradicting certain laws that are there, that are present. So in thought, a lot we say, well, nothing is impossible. And often at the same time, what we think is possible is actually governed by certain laws and circumstances. And a lot of those are old. A lot of what we think is possible is governed by the laws that Isaac Newton came up with, the physical laws. The physical laws that say, oh, you can't be in two places at one time. You can't be two things at the same time. In order to affect something, you've got to be really close to it. If you want to move something, it has to be a force of equal or greater value to move it. That things can't just disappear into thin air. Those kind of things are based on physical laws that we call Newtonian laws, but they were developed and they helped explain a lot about the physical world. And people who thought differently, who tried to think outside of those laws, they were labeled as non-realists, living in a fantasy world, dreamers. But what if the dreamers were right? What if shamans really do see an alternate reality? What if energy healers really do heal in the physical? What if a person could be two places in the same time? There are some people that say people, including Jesus, were able to do that. I don't know. Well, things that explain items that are not explained by physical laws often are things that are coming out of what we call the quantum realm. Now, quantum mechanics was developed to describe how light and matter behave at the minuscule atomic scale. At the tiny, tiniest scale, light does not behave in accordance with all those Newtonian laws. It doesn't. And because of that, these other set of realities, quantum mechanics was developed to try to explain, well, what is going on then with this light, with these photons, with energy? As an example, a photon, the tiniest little bit of particle of electromagnetic energy, it emanates, it radiates light and radio waves, and it also is also a force of that energy. Well, when scientists tried to say, okay, is this photon, is it a particle or is it a wave? I mean, is it a particle? Is it mass or is it wave? Is it more like energy? What is it? Well, they designed an experiment that would tell them. And when the experiment was set up to discover a particle, sure enough, they saw a particle. But then, when it was set up to discover a wave, they saw a wave. So this little bit, this little subatomic particle can be a wave and a particle. It can be both. Well, this was totally a head scratcher to them, right? The thing that really threw them off was that it changed depending on what you were expecting, what you thought you were going to find. And there's another experiment that actually says even after the fact, it would change based on what someone thought. So, well, a new thought is like, well, yeah, well, we've known this. I mean, we've known this for a long time. Thoughts held in mind produce after their own kind, right? What you think about, you bring about. And we thought, well, yeah, we're glad the scientists are finally catching up with us. But it does give us some kind of solidity, some kind of backing to have those beliefs. And it gives us a little bit more depth when we read the quote from Hebrews 11 that says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It says, for it is through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen came to be from those which are not seen. See that word, that intention that's put out there causes things to exist that previously didn't. It causes things to change. It causes things to be a certain way in the way that we speak of them, the way that we intend them. So what we think is very, very important. And so we don't want to be thinking 95% about the time about just the same thought we had yesterday that's not generative. And what we think about what is possible is even doubly more important if we want to be expansive. See, if we can't think beyond these Newtonian laws, then we're stuck in them. We're stuck believing things can happen in accordance with them. So it might require some imagination to get beyond that. To get beyond the laws that we've lived with, that science has told us is the way it is. We get beyond it with imagination. Dr. Sue Morter says this in the Energy Codes. Quantum science tells us that everything happens at the energy level before it happens at the physical level. We start to manifest whatever we think about consciously through arranging subatomic particles into specific patterns. The imagination is the tool for shifting energy patterns, but that doesn't mean that what we'll be doing isn't real. It only means that your thoughts will be generative, original, and inspired, rather than habitual, reactionary, or conditioned. Your imagination puts you back in touch with the rest of who you truly are. So we want to expand what we think is possible, not be stuck in those old paradigms, those old Newtonian laws. We want to use our imagination a little bit to say, well, maybe I could imagine something else. And so I brought some tools with me this morning, and those tools are actually qualities of the quantum realm, qualities of how tiny, tiny subatomic particles can behave in the quantum realm, which, of course, that realm underlies everything else. It underlies everything else, right? So these are going to be qualities. Now, I will just preface this by saying I'm not a scientist, and a lot of the stuff I was reading was kind of very highly scientifically technical, and I didn't, you've got to be really up there to know everything they're talking about. But what I excerpted from it was enough so that we can get the idea. And just to give credit, I got a lot of it from lsu.edu research and also from thephysicsoftheuniverse.com. So these are qualities of the quantum realm, and I have an acronym. And the acronym is AND. We think what is possible, and this other thing can be possible too. So it's an expansion of what we think is possible. I think this is possible, and something else. So the A in AND, the quality we're going to describe with this one, with the A, is appear and disappear. Now, these tiny, tiny little subatomic particles, little bits of light, photons swirling around in an atom, they are unpredictable. They can be over here at one moment, and the next moment they're over there. And it's almost magic. And scientists cannot predict where they're going to go. Unlike AWS can predict where a football is going to land and whether the receiver is going to be able to catch it, scientists cannot predict the movement of these subatomic particles. Can't. Now they appear, you can see them, and then they can just disappear. And then they pop right back in and appear again, as if it's almost out of thin air. as if it's literally out of nothing. They appear and disappear and appear and disappear. So, what does that mean for us? Well, for one thing, it means that the fabric of the universe, just like the ocean, is in constant motion. It's in constant motion. It's never going to be completely still. The chair that you're sitting on is not totally solid because parts of it are popping in and out of existence at any point, and they're not coming back in at the same place. Appear and disappear. Things are not solid. So taking that into our life, if we think a situation that we're in is really, man, this is solid, this is the way it is, it's stuck. Well, we can add another possibility to that, and that's that, well, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. These conditions can appear or they can disappear. If we think something is inevitable, if we think, oh, there's a trajectory of this relationship, it's kind of heading toward a negative end, that doesn't have to be either. It can be totally unpredictable. It can be going in that direction and all of a sudden come back here with a thought, with an intention. Things are not solid. They appear and disappear. That's the A. Now the N in and once again, we're describing qualities in the quantum realm. The N stands for non-local. So almost all of the regular physics is based on the belief that an object is directly influenced only by things that are close to it. Like if I want to move my finger, I have to get up close to it and push, right? I can't just, aside from my thinking, I can't just like think it to move over like that. But it's been discovered in the quantum realm that this is not so. They took particles that were entangled, and what that means is that when one shifted this way, the other one automatically shifted the other, so they stayed in balance, okay? So it was an instantaneous shift. It wasn't like this and then this. It was like this, okay? They shifted instantaneously, one sort of in reaction to the other, but instantaneously. Well, they took particles like this, and they separated them by great distances. And lo and behold, when this one shifted, the other one shifted the opposite way. Just like they did when they were right next to each other. Now, what this means is if there's some kind of communication, some kind of intimacy about this connectedness of everything in the universe, some kind of presence, right? I mean, to me, it sounds like they just proved the presence of God, of the presence, this connectedness, this ability to totally be in sync with something that's even billions of light years apart. So, what does this mean for us? When we're going to choose what's possible. Well, it means that healings can happen at a distance, remotely. Shared thoughts can happen remotely. You've heard of the 100th monkey. That was a brain thing, happened remotely. When something happens with a loved one, you might feel it. That's remotely. There's nothing close. It means that everything is connected. Everything. So our attitudes, our beliefs, are the things we hold in our mind, the energy that we walk around with, that's important because it's affecting something. It can be affecting something all the way on Venus or Saturn or beyond. It's important. Our prayers that we say and the energy with which we pray them in. We want to pray with a knowingness, with a love, and harmony, with integrity. Those things, holding those things impacts the universe in that way. The energy that we hold just throughout our day has an impact. It has an impact because everything is connected. this this function of it's called non-local. That's the N in and non-local because things at a distance can impact others. This is such an odd phenomenon that Einstein called this spooky actions at a distance. And he was a little freaked out by it, actually. He didn't know what to do with it. Spooky actions at a distance, non-local. So that's the N. Now the D stands for duality. And it's about the duality of being a wave and a particle. Okay, being both of those. We've already talked about that. But there's more to this story than that. When scientists came up with a mathematical formula that described the quantum state, it describes some strange realities. And one of those is that a particle could be in two places at the same time. Now, if you're trying to measure it, you can only measure it in one of those places. But the formula itself is absolutely correct. And it describes that it can be in two places. Now, there are people that have theorized that perhaps this means that we really do have some alternate realities going on, an alternate universe, perhaps, alternate universes going on, that there are multiple actualities that could be occurring. That a particle really is in both places, but perhaps you can only sense. They say measure, but measure, sense, recognize the one that's in the reality that you're in. So what does it mean to us in choosing great possibility? Well, to me it says that if I can imagine that other reality, if I can feel that other reality, intend that other reality, then the particle or whatever situation it is I'm about, thinking about, being about, can actually turn up in that reality instead of the one that it's currently in. It's another way for us to realize that possibility is way outside of what we think we see, what we think we perceive. That there can be alternate realities that we can actually grab onto. And science is proving this. So I don't know about you, but all this quantum stuff is really exciting to me. I love it. I think it's very exciting how things work and, how it alters the very essence of what we think is possible. Because if we don't think something larger is possible, then we're stuck with our 90% and our 95%, living a life that so shortchanges who and what we are. So let's think about and include in possible those qualities of the quantum realm. A, appear and disappear and being unpredictable. N, non-local, spooky actions at a distance. And D, the duality of wave and particle and the duality of realities. So let's just take this into treatment. As we take a breath deep in the belly to center ourselves. I am just so grateful to be in this moment, to be in this place where life is so amazing, to be in this place where the presence is so vast, so undefined in many cases, so able to do things that we might have seen were impossible before, but that are entirely possible. This presence that we've thought of in the old times as creating miracles. We are one of those essences of a miracle in itself. We are made of all of this stuff, this infinite possibility, just being generated as a physical body. And beyond, we exist way beyond the physical body. But in this presence, in this knowing of all of these things that are way outside the scope of what we may have thought before, we realize we can speak our word and it has power and it has meaning and it is the power to change. So this morning I speak my word for each and every one of us. That if there is any situation, anything happening with any of us where we feel stuck, where we feel we can't move, that belief falls by the wayside. It falls by the wayside to be transmuted into a beautiful belief that we are not stuck, that the presence is this living, moving presence, loving presence is always moving us toward greater things, toward higher levels of understanding, toward higher levels of consciousness, higher levels of expression. And that exists in and through every single part of our lives, our relationships, our physical being, our financial situations, in all things. There is a movement. There is an uplifting. There is a lifting up into realms previously we thought were impossible, but that are totally possible. Our consciousness is expanded. Our thoughts are expanded. Our lives reflect these beautiful qualities of the infinite. I'm so grateful to know this, to be able to speak these words and to know that they are true and true and true. And so with great gratitude and joy, I release them and say, and so it is. Amen. And this week, as we go out into our lives, let us remember the quantum realm and how life may not be what it seems after all, that we really can choose a greater possibility.